Welcome to the 2-month review, the weekly podcast from Open Letter and 3%, in which we take a single book, break it down bit by bit, section by section, read it, analyze it, joke about it, talk about it, so on and so forth. I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, and I'm joined as always by Brian Wood.
Morning, Chad.
This is real early morning for you out there in Utah.
Oh yeah, I've got my super sexy morning voice today. So. Hey everybody.
That'll play well.
Yeah.
You're like a smooth rock radio DJ.
All right, all the hits today coming at you.
I
should read off the list of names that are in this section.
I've been asking people like to pick to give us the name of all of our guests have been giving us their description of what they think one of these authors was.
We've got a smooth ballad from Maria Quall coming at you.
I don't think hers are smooth, man. She's like jagged little pill sort of action.
There's a lot of great names in this section. I'm sure we can get to it at some point, but
all the names are so good. There's I shouldn't say this. I doubt that he listens though. There was someone on LinkedIn who tried to befriend me or wanted to be my friend from yesterday who had the most, I'm sure he's a perfectly nice guy, but he had the most Anton Volodine name I have ever seen in my life. His name is Kirill Kurvatovich, which is I was like, oh my God, it's like a character from the book. Come to life.
He just got off the train.
he just got off the train. He's been driving around trying to help out the second Soviet Union for a while.
Why would I friend you? You're just gonna get tossed into a reactor. You're not gonna make it.
He's from Russia too. Of all things, everything about this is perfect. He's it can't be real. I'm sure this is a perfectly nice guy. Sure, he's lovely, but in some ways I feel like he's not a real person. And if we haven't picked up by now, we are in the middle of reading Radiant Terminus by Anton Volodine. Today we're talking about section, it's in part 3, AMOK, chapter 17, 18, and 19. And before, actually, I don't know if this is best to say now or to use in the middle, but I think I'm going to say it now to set this up because we're not doing our little games because we don't have a guest because Tom Flynn's behind. So we can make fun of Tom Flynn for a few minutes if we want to.
Of course he failed. Good God.
I thought it would be funny to play the game of what does this post-exotic name remind you of, and then just describe Tom.
Yeah.
But then that felt sort of mean.
I don't even know why Chicago calls itself second city. It's not even third city. You don't even get a bronze medal. You get fourth. You get nothing.
And all of a sudden our ratings dive.
Isn't Chicago one of those love or hate cities? People either love Chicago or they screw that place. There's no in between, which I like, which I really appreciate about that. I like things like that.
Yeah.
There's no gray area. You either love Chicago or you hate it.
I like Chicago as a city. I hate the Cubs. These two things are very difficult for me to separate.
So then you hate Chicago.
I suppose I do.
Yeah.
That's not true. I really do like being there. Who cares? Anyways, so I've also been recounting my weird Anton Volodine inflected dreams that happen every week like clockwork. And this week I read chapter 16 and 17, which we'll talk about in a second, or 17 and 18, I mean. And then that night, this was on Monday, I went to bed and I had a dream in which I was part of the Avengers. This is absolutely amazing. So I think I might have been a Spider-Man, but I'm not entirely sure.
What was your power?
I could shoot
crushing pessimism.
Yeah.
That plan's not going to work. That's a stupid plan. You know that, right? Stop it, Chad. We're trying to be positive here. Yeah, it's kind of dumb. It's all dumb. Burn it all. That would be your superpower. Captain Pessimist or I don't know, whatever.
That would be, yeah, fair enough. But I think I really like to refer to it as realist.
Sure.
Realist. But at the beginning, there's a bunch of us. There's Captain Marvel. I was maybe a Spider-Man or something. There's another Spider-Man, a couple other people. We all shot into space, and then we came down for no reason I can discern at all. But we came back through time to 9/11, and our goal of our mission, Nick Fury was there too. And Nick Fury told us that our goal of the mission was to shoot down the planes that were going to hit the World Trade Center to prevent 9/11. And initially we started shooting down these planes, and he's like, no, those aren't the real planes. You're seeing planes from the future. The real planes haven't arrived yet. and the real plane came in to hit the World Trade Center, and I was shooting at it and not doing anything. And Captain Marvel just like blasted it, and it just exploded. And we're like, yeah, we saved 9/11. And it's like, wait a second, we fucking murdered like all these people on this plane.
No,
because straight murdered them. And
no,
then this
you didn't murder anybody because those were drones.
And then this huge ship falls down, and Thanos comes out. And Jason Mantzoukas was playing one of the characters from How Did This Get Made and The Good Place and numerous other things. And Jason Mantzoukas is like, Thanos, why are you always here? Jesus Christ, leave us alone, Thanos. You don't have to come bother Earth constantly with your stuff. And then I woke up.
I could totally hear that voice of his. Yeah, that's a.
I can't imitate him, but it's exactly that. And it's it was.
I guess the closest thing I had to a Volodine dream was so my daughter's 4, and she went on our patio, and then she climbed up to the top of the railing, was just standing on it with her arms out, like balancing. And I was freaking out, and I ran. And I grabbed her by her shirt, by her shoulders, and like she got mad at me for pulling her back from like the precipice.
So you didn't dream about being a good father. I didn't dream about literally murdering human beings.
Yeah, no, but like it was like I woke up, like my heart was just like I was so freaked out when I woke up from it. Like, oh my God, my daughter almost died.
She almost fell into the pit.
Yeah, well, not even a pit, just like she was like on the edge of like just I don't know what was on the other side of our balcony, but she was like standing on it and like liking it, and then like I didn't want her being there. So yeah, that was my Volodine dream.
Nice. So I think talk about the first 2 sections. I think our dream will make a little bit of sense within that context, weirdly. But so the first one that we have as 17 is basically like this in this chapter AMOK. The last what led up to here is Kronauer's at Radiant Terminus. Ilyushenko and Vasilisa have arrived there because they took Vasilisa to like Solovyei, the big bad of Radiant Terminus, was going to revive her and give her as a wife to the husband of his youngest daughter, Samiya, because he doesn't want them to be married. So that's pretty fucked up. And Ilyushenko is also there, tried to get into the Radiant Terminus with this train that never ended, that seems to be part of Solovyei's overall dreams, and that everyone's like a pawn. Kronauer, who is one of the 3 at the beginning of these 3 were trying to help each other out. He's been in Radiant Terminus for a while. It's been told that Vasilisa and Ilyushenko had vanished. It doesn't know that they're there, and doesn't know that Vasilisa in particular is there at Radiant Terminus. Now, the last chapter, things started to break down after this attack from the train of people trying to get in and trying to get to Radiant Terminus. They were shot. A bunch of people are shot. The train bolted and left all their dead bodies laying around. And then in the first chapter of AMOK, we get a bunch of three poems, 3 of the poems from Solovyei that like wreck everyone's world and give everyone like uncomfortable nightmares and are horrible things. And they play over and over and over again. And it was a nightmarish night, but not just for Kronauer. Now in 17, we get this sort of like next, like the flip side of that, in which Samiya, the daughter of Solovyei, whose husband is going to be getting this replacement wife, I guess. She follows him, sees what they're doing, sees that her dad's trying to revive Vasilisa to give to do something to do horrible things to, and she just flips her shit and becomes like some sort of crazy.
She goes like Captain Marvel.
She Captain Marvel.
I'm gonna destroy. I'm super strong now. Bye.
And like the descriptions are like amazing because they're like,
it was insane. She ran at full speed for 1,000 kilometers. Like, okay, like running around like a banshee or something.
I love the visual. This would make an amazing
radiation
like
rage mode. Yeah,
amazing movie.
Some of the stuff in here is just bizarre, man.
It's
like the smells. The smells make no sense. It smelled like plutonium. Well, I've never smelled plutonium, but I guess
there's the smells show up in all of his books. They're always like super detailed and strange, and like
it's a very, very smelly book for sure.
Things ooze a lot. There's a lot of like detritus and oozing. Yeah, so she runs around, but it's amazing because this, like the section, so she's running around, it's like she's covered in very hard scales. She lands terrible blows. She moves at an incredible speed. She transforms her scream into energy like Banshee. She no longer has blood, or rather she no longer has either blood or the absence of blood. She is neither dead nor alive, nor in dreams, nor in reality, nor in space, nor in the absence of space. She makes theater. And it keeps repeating that she makes theater line.
Yeah, I underlined all that.
Me too. She makes wind, she makes theater, she makes black sky, she makes 4 black heavens, and she like fucks up everyone. And then she gets pissed and attacks her dad and shoves a metal bar through his eye, which is good stuff too. And then she disappears and is silent. So in contrast to like Solovyei using all these words and like these poems of his from the Black Cylinders that play and like infect everyone and like cause them undue harm and like insane things, she's like much more of the opposite, where it's very physically described as like becoming like a quasi superheroed, super powered being and just literally wrecking Radiant Terminus.
Yeah,
which I love. This is my favorite part.
Yeah, this was a really great chapter. I liked it a lot as well. I mean, like, stuff actually happens in it, and then there's do rut. So that one made me. I just chuckled every time. You wanted to do rut with her. Do
rut is maybe the best phrase ever.
Yeah.
Like it didn't show up before this part, but then it's in here a bunch of times in these 3 chapters, and do rut is just wonderful. So like,
I didn't maybe catch this correctly, but so was it from the book Bari, Son of Kazan? Mm-hmm. The only book by James Oliver Curwood.
Yep.
That didn't get liquidated. And I guess it was the other authors it mentions, like Maria Quall, Rosa Wolf, Tatiana Daphonopoulos or whatever. They were kind of like feminist texts. Yep. And then his wasn't, and it changes the phrase from make love with do sex or do rut. And then like later she's saying she's using
that he uses, okay, I see what you're saying. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but like that he says that James Oliver Curwood says make love or do sex, but like the others, the feminist authors use the term do rut.
Yeah, they say do rut, and then she uses that same terminology later.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Absolutely. That whole paragraph is worth reading though. This generous prose, both at the breath of nature, was a change from the imprecations of Maria Quall, Rosa Wolf, and Tatiana Damianopoulos, who replaced the phrase make love with do sex or do rut, and who always, no matter the subject of their story, managed to express uncompromising opinions about bodies, their unacceptable physiological mechanisms, sexual impulses, and the Cox language prowling throughout men's thoughts.
And that comes up a lot too. He tried to suppress the Cox language, or you see that a lot throughout it.
Yeah, and it's been referenced earlier with the Maria Quall and that Kronauer is like trying not to do the Cox language. But
that's another like just funny. Like, yep, that's the Cox language getting me in trouble again.
It's wonderful because we all know what it is, and it's one of the ones that like this book has so many like ideologies that dominate the characters and their minds and the landscape, and that's one of them that's like real prevalent that keeps coming up, the Cox language and like this interaction between men and women.
Well, I like it too because with thinking about Cox language and then changing sex to do rut, which is very animalistic, right? Like I think rutting is a term that's basically saved for like, you know, future farmers of America or something like.
I was gonna say like
rutting, or, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it turns like men's desires into this very primal animalistic thing, and that makes sense why they're like, don't harm us, don't hurt us, you're going to try to, you know, like the men are like animals in this decayed state of affairs, and the way all the language keeps repeating that, so it works really well.
Yeah, it really does go back to like one of the things I forget which episode it was we talked about this, but that one of the fundamental questions in the book seems to be that after ideologies and like society is broken down, we're left with like that primal instinct, and that without having some sense of beliefs or some way of interpreting the world, then human beings don't come together right. They come together as like violence, or it's dangerous, it's treacherous, and it's only within these systems like the socialist camp system in which they can be like, yes, we can be a community now. Yeah. But then that's opposed by Solovyei and the Cox language and capitalism and fascism, where it's like, this is my way of interpreting the world, and within that, it's violent and dangerous.
And there's also a theme of like a vulgar display of power and aggression. Yeah. Right. The way like Solovyei is mind raping you.
Yeah.
I mean, without and the way which when she kills him, she takes like a phallic thing, like a metal rod, and just shoves it through his face, right?
Yeah.
Like, into his brain. Like I literally just fucked your head. boom,
Yeah.
like, physically. And like you keep seeing that happening as well, where there's just, you know, I guess it just comes back to power and being aggressive with power.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, and male power. There was
sure.
something else in this. Where was it? This came up to me.
Just real quick though, the next page on 256, I thought like perfectly things that guests have been talking about, we've been talking about throughout in the theme. Like this really just nailed it home. The first full sentence there that says nobody on page 256. Nobody really ever came into her private space except to her great regret, Solovyei, who did not respect any boundaries and who, whenever he wanted to, and without ever asking her what she thought, broke through all her defenses, crept into no matter how hard she resisted, and came and went within her like it was his own terrain, observing her internal dreams and possessing her completely, towering over everything, showing no difference between the physical and the mental, taking hold of everything. Then without warning or discussion, having gotten what he wanted, he left. Like, it's just that total like dictator, like I can do whatever I want when I want. I don't care. Like that godlike like umbrella he has over everything.
So back to like when I first described this book to you, and I said it was like Jessica Jones, but
sure,
like
yeah, Russia, you're right.
We have the Purple Man, and then Samiya becomes like a Jessica Jones like character.
Yeah,
she like toughens up and gets all badass. Not enough whiskey, but
sure. And I think we may have been really close to catching some of the earlier, you know, threads that Volodine put through here, where, you know, what if this is just, we're in somebody's dream? Like it's mentioned several times, right? Like we're just characters for this person's mad fantasy. These people are like very self-aware. They have no control, and like they're not alive and they're not dead. Like we're just suspended in this weird space, and we're in someone's nightmare.
There was so I finished reading The Incompletes by Sergio Shafek last night, and this and the Shafek book has a bit about this. It'd be too hard for me to describe right now, but it talks a lot about like feeling like there's something else in control and that you're sort of incomplete except when like an author puts your characters in contact with each other within spaces, and that they're sort of being directed. And this had that feeling too. But when I finished this last night, I thought, wouldn't it be funny if Solovyei was in everyone else's dream, that he's not real, and that this is what our nightmares are, is creating that sort of being, is like what the base instinct of the characters becomes, is that they can't live without that. They need someone torturing them in this way, and that it's all backwards. That would blow your mind.
Yeah. That needs to happen in this, because again, the thing that keeps like screwing with me reading this is the shift in tense and narration. Like just like out of nowhere. Like, oh my gosh, there's this one. What was the one part? Like, had this been written by a post-exotic, that part is hilarious.
Those are so good. I love this book. Is so funny despite all of the horror and just gross shit that's happening. There's so much like funny stuff. Where the first, I guess, what does the little period mean? It's just like a new, you know, it's a new section. Right? So like rather than just the blank line, he uses that as if it's like bullets from a report.
Sure. You know, the night is long, very turbulent, very strange, and very long. Like it just immediately switches tone. Like she is covered. She lands terrible blows. She moves at incredible speed. Like it goes to present tense all of a sudden out of nowhere. And like, well, wait, who's doing? And it's interesting they do that shift when you know she transforms into this whatever scaly fire monster running beast or whatever the hell this thing is.
She covers herself with specks of cutting ice. She covers herself with night. She makes blinding night. She makes immobile tempest. She makes theater. I love this pit. I think it's like for poetry. You know, it's funny because like his things are supposed to be poetry and verbal, and like as his attacks, and hers are like this physical like rage and like actual destruction. But it's more poetic when you read the descriptions of this. It's like almost beautiful, like as she's like totally wrecking house and doing crazy shit. This is just random, but I was reading about Wilson Harris yesterday. It was like a Guyanese author who I remember reading about years and years ago. He's featured in like the Review of Contemporary Fiction, and for some reason it came into my mind out of nowhere. So I was looking up various of his books, and one of his big things towards the end of his life was writing what he referred to as quantum fiction, and it's basically what's here on page 260. Often it was from there that he launched himself into parallel universes, into strange flames, into strange flames, into empty spaces and dreams where he was sometimes a horribly resentful and invincible shaman, sometimes a magnificent lover, sometimes a traveler to dark worlds, sometimes a necromancer specializing in punishment in camps, sometimes an unforgettable cryptic poet whose words were non-paral, forbidden to the dead, to the living, and to the dogs. Just reminded me of this idea of like quantum fiction.
Well, I've
Things
never
are
read
uncertain
quantum
in
fiction.
multiple possibilities.
Yeah.
What's that?
I've never read any quantum fiction.
It's like a term that I don't think people use anymore, but I'm going to go get a couple of his books because I'm curious about him. He wrote a book about Jonestown too, which
okay.
I'm so sort of way into cults and serial killers right now. So thanks to podcasts, not because of like anything else, but like this Zodiac podcast is getting to me, man.
Since I got out of my first cult and joined my second,
there's nothing better than cults. There's really like cults are amazing. Cults are straight amazing. So yeah, so she ends that one. She kills her dad. There's a whole she accuses him of violence. 268 is when this all happens. When she's like she accuses him of vileness and incestuous relations with imaginary daughters, with real dead or imaginary spouses. She accuses him of debauchery committed against willing victims, fornicating with the Grandma Ugdal. She also accuses him of having done rut with his own daughters, with a list of the girls whose names she says one by one, all without any end to her coming and going down the village's streets and tunnels, with the girls whose names she says at random into the darkness, with unknown women whose names she invents, with girls like Solovyei Mercurin, Emery Good, Nadiane Beck, Ketty Berbadojan, Maria Dijabal, Maria Dongfang. Dongfang is amazing. Lily Grunwald, Barbara Rock, and Kolchnik's lost to memory, with poetesses whose names and faces and poems weren't left to posterity, with the female communist prisoners locked up with him in camps, with counter-revolutionary women and representatives of the first, the second, and the third stinking category. And to end the list, she accuses him once more of having had ignominious relations with his own daughters. So she wrecks him, she kills him, the end.
Because doesn't Solovyei is basically, isn't he exhibiting kind of like all the, like, and exhibiting all the traits of a cult? Like if you're into, like, because a cult's like,
yeah.
I mean, obviously
crazy sex things.
Well, but it's usually surrounded around one person and the idolization of one person. It tends to be one of the big things with cults, right?
Yep.
And so like he has that cult-like figure and the people are all under his control, or, you know. And
like with Scientology, he like enters into some magical land, which I think we kind of see here a little bit in a minute. Sure. Like his own like sort of cathedral of sorts that he like can get inside of and like rejuvenate, where he finds like the magic truth from beyond and tells all about his fire and his flames and his birds and shit, which can be like the weird Scientology belief system that could come into play. So yeah, it has cult. Although the difference between a cult and fascism in this case is like negligible.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
Because like there's not like enough like where people are like, oh yeah, I'm totally on Solovyei's side. Everyone's just like, I'm trapped here. Like,
yeah,
I don't know what to do. But anyway, so
yeah, it feels more like a dictatorship of some kind, right?
Yeah. So 18, we move on, and there's whatchamacallit, who's sleeping with him? Is it no, Miriam Umarek is in Kronauer's house. They have a really interesting interactions I want to get back to in a second, but then she's like, you know, this is what happened last night. Shit went wrong. Don't tell anyone that I've been here, but I want to leave with my husband Barguzin. I really love him. Whatever she says, she sort of implies that she loves him. That we'll come back to that in a second. But she's like, we need to get out of here. You need to help us. And he's like, well, I don't need to help you. Like, Solovyei got his brain wrecked by a rod. And she's like, no, dude, this doesn't matter. He's totally fine. We're not all neither dead nor living in Radiant Terminus. We're all bits of Solovyei's dreams. We're all ends and pieces of dreams or poems in his head. And so then
I like when she goes, it looks like a normal place, but it's not. And he's like, I never thought this was a normal place.
That's my favorite line of all.
Because the first thing, I underlined that before I got to the one underneath it. Because I'm like, no, there's nothing normal about this place at all. He's like, I never thought this was normal. Like, oh yeah, you just took my thoughts. That was my exact thought.
Exactly.
There is nothing normal about this place.
So then this is where at the last moment of 281, where Kronauer decides that, I'll just read this part because this is it. Kronauer conceded that of all those in the village, he might be in a better position than the others to murder Solovyei, and he admitted that, as a soldier, inflicting death upon an enemy of the people was his line of work, adding that he personally hated this shamanistic brute who kept the Radiant Terminus cold coats under his magical thumb, but pointing out that he didn't have an objective reason to carry out the act. He preferred that the sanction be decided by an extraordinary commission rather than imposed by an isolated individual who could later be reproached for having acted upon private motives unworthy of a proletarian revolutionary, which is why he recommended putting together a popular tribunal in which the daughters and his sons-in-laws of Solovyei would sit as judges, with the Grandma Ugdal playing the role of lawyer, accomplice to the accused, and, for example, with one-armed Abaziah in the role of the poor and indigenous masses. It's like, yeah, you're probably right. I probably should kill him, but like, I don't know, man. Like, we should.
Can we get a committee? Maybe there could be a special committee, and then a council, and then from the council,
and then a council on that committee, and then maybe we could have some hearings. And like,
no, we need assassination.
We need to just get rid of Solovyei. Trapped by Cox language. Oh yeah, the last part he gets trapped.
See, that part's very.
Language.
I didn't read that as being very funny. First off, but when you read it now, like that's a very funny paragraph.
It's like that's how this book, like, it takes a thing, but then because of, I feel like it is because I keep reiterating this, but like because of the frame that they used for interpreting the world gets planted on this, that it becomes absurd and funny. So it starts off so normal, like, yeah, you know, I'm probably the one that could kill him. Best I'm fucking army and soldier. Killing is my sort of duty. But then it's like, but you know, that would go against my communist beliefs. And within the communist beliefs, we should do this, this, and this. And they would, you know, I don't want to be a counter-revolutionary. And it becomes absurd and funny because he's trapped by that language and by that point. And that's sort of like the next part that's not funny, but does that as well is the next paragraph on 282, where he's watching her. Without turning towards her, Kronauer made out in the grayness her attractive curves frequently shaken by barely perceptible waves. She'd set her wig back in place, and dark and full, shining silky, her hair flowed once again to her waist with delightful naturalness. Kronauer's hands imagined touching them, the movements that they would make in this gently rustling mass, its playful scattering, while they rubbed just past the hair, this rubbing that would result in possessing the skin, the flesh, the body of this woman, the male achievement of what the Cox language dictated, what the Cox language had ordered since time immemorial. He meandered on the subject for 7 or 8 seconds, and then he put an end to his reverie. At least he forced himself to block, to suppress, and to repress the animalistic suggestions that invaded his head, and beyond his head, the muscle fibers and nerve endings that anticipated his touching, his squeezing, his rubbing. So, like, again, like the language or that part just takes over, and he's trapped within the Cox language. Yeah, this part. So, but yeah, the thing that I thought was most interesting about this section was where they almost like, where she's like. They wake up and like she's nice to him and they're like having a nice normal interaction. And even like when she's like don't think in the Cox language, he's like, I'm not made of stone. She's like, of course not, your heart is iron, and like smiles at him like with like almost like a lewd joke. It's like the first time in a long time in this book in which two people had like a kind of nice interaction where they weren't.
Everything's been so just like survival and dreary and yeah,
and like it's like a good playful. There's like a playfulness there and like a non-judgmental playfulness. And she's like, her smile is an open one, not even flirtatious, friendly in a certain way. Then this moment of gentleness disappeared. Miriam Umarek's mouth became serious again. But for a moment it breaks through and nobody judges. Yeah. He's not trapped by the Cox language. He is hard. Yeah. That was great. But yeah, they want to get out and they want him to make that happen.
I like on the other part we kind of just shows again his Volodine kind of shows his range as a writer and his way of infusing humor on 288. About halfway down. So the scene happened without positive heroes and without the cinematic participation of the smiling faces of miners or anonymous detachments of steelworkers in helmets, without the flag of the working classes waving proudly above the Cossacks, without calls for supplementary sacrifices, and without inevitable final discourses of party cadets come back from the front with a medal and one less leg. We apologize in advance. Like, so you're not going to get the kind of scene you think you're going to get. Sorry.
Absolutely not. And yeah, so moving into 19, this is a chapter in which they have to go dispose of everything into the core. So they're going to open up the core, and Grandma Ugdal is going to tell them what needs to be thrown in there. She's going to speak to the core.
But it's like ceremonial, right? It's like this big ceremonial thing.
It's like the ritual of sorts. Yeah. And like, I don't know why they have to feed the core, but they have to keep the core happy because it's keeping them alive.
Yeah, because even with it, we see more where Grandma Grandma Ugdal has like this, almost like a medicine woman type of, like that kind of trope, right?
Yeah.
Where, you know, like she has like a source, like a wise elder sorceress type of role where she has to speak something before they open the lid and give it thanks and praise and whatever, and people follow her orders and whatever the ritual has to be. Like it's like it's her and it's Solovyei, like it's those two, right?
Yeah, exactly. And if she's like, so if this is like if you put it up in a male female like characteristics or whatever, she's nurturing the core that keeps them alive, and he's like raping everyone.
And he's taking the power of it and using it for his own. Yeah,
absolutely. Like, and that comes up a little bit in here when she's like couldn't throw away the cylinders, and she's like, I'm gonna throw away all these cylinders, and then can't. So
what do you think was up with the milking machine? That's mentioned a couple times, right?
I know. I wasn't sure.
And
so basically
that got tossed in there too, right?
Yeah, and goes down it looks like a animal. Oh, you know what? Maybe the milking machine would be maybe something that's like another form of sustenance. Like if you had a milking machine, you would be able to milk cows theoretically and create food for yourself. But by getting rid of that, they're still entirely dependent upon the core and upon Solovyei.
Yeah, or it could be people. Like what? Oh, there's that creepy part of. Did you watch Mad Max Fury Road?
No.
So they're all irradiate, like the people are all like decayed and irradiated, all jacked up and stuff because of the nuclear fallout. And they have like this harem of women in this one room. They're just huge, like grotesque beings, and they're all pale with hair falling out, and they're all hooked up to milking machines. Oof. And it's like filling up this giant like carboy of milk, and like the leader of the whole group is drinking the milk of all these women, and like so there's all these weird milking machines and tubes, and it reminded me of that quite a bit.
Wow. Yeah.
That
seems very
but just very Volodine. But just the image of like this large, powerful individual, and he's literally like sucking the milk from all the people.
Man, yeah.
To give himself strength and power, and just they're hooked up to machines and just being sucked by this one. Like it's such a great image of like a power structure, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm gonna take the life out of your body for myself and rule over and lord over you with it.
It's so rough.
Yeah,
I've got to see that movie at some point. I don't know why I didn't. But anyways, and so in this section, so they open up the thing, they throw all that stuff in, and then at the end they're like, oh, by the way, you have to go throw in the bodies, and so
don't look at them though. You don't want to see if they are.
Yeah, don't want to know. And whatever Hanko, whatever her name is, and Hanko and Kronauer go over there, and he opens up one of the ones, and it's Morgovian, and it is one of the people who's dead. So on 304, I find out that it's her husband, or no, whatchamacallit, Samira's husband, is dead, is one of the people there, and the other is Vasilisa. So like they're they're both gone.
Didn't
and
see
then
that coming.
Yeah. So so Vasilisa's dead, and Kronauer finds it, and that's when Kronauer's like, "Fuck this," and he's out.
That was his girlfriend, right?
Well, they were really like, remember the three of them were traveling. Ilyushenko, Vasilisa, and Kronauer were traveling together, and they were like, we don't want to have sex because that'll make everything weird. So we're all like brother sister, and that's where it keeps coming back to, like, people are like, was that your wife? And he's like, not really. And they're like, well, it must have been your mom or like your daughter. And he's like, no, it's not my daughter or my wife. And they're like, I don't understand that. That doesn't make
well, you guys
sense.
Can't actually just be friends. There's no such thing as a platonic relationship.
We've all seen When Harry Met Sally here in Radiant Terminus. It's like it's a Thursday night movie session is When Harry Met Sally. But
well, no, and if you think that's a beautiful echo to the beginning, right? Because we're invited into this world with him trying to do everything he can to help her survive, right?
Yeah.
And so what's going to push him to this next? Hold on one sec. You can.
In that for a second there. So he's there. So he's there hoping to save her. That's why he went to Radiant Terminus, was to get supplies to bring back to her as she was dying out by the train.
Yeah, and I think what's going to propel him into, like, if we're doing act structures, like Act 3 is discovering the death of her, like throwing her into that core is like, all right, I'm ready to kill. Let's kill some Let's burn this place down. I'm ready.
Yep.
And that's a very like deft move by Volodine to set that up and kind of let us forget about it and then like reintroduce it and like, all right, the character's ready to be pushed. Like it makes sense. It's a really, really good move.
The structure is really nice where it has like the Kronauer goes in as like a hero's journey, and then you have the train people come and Vasilisa gets reintroduced, and now things are just like breaking down in like that middle section of like a Shakespeare play or a Kathy Acker book, which all of it is just happening. But that part where he throws her in, and then it becomes like he gives up on this whole idea of like a special counsel. As for his hands, they only move for one thing: to strangle the first person to get in their way, and if that wasn't enough to calm them, to strangle anyone. Strangle one by one each of Solovei's creations living in the Levinadovo, whether they were accomplices, willing victims, or strange living dead. To strangle them, hurt them, undo them, and then, in one way or another, to do away with Solovyei and with Radiant Terminus. This was what Kronauer had become in a few seconds. A man gripped, filled completely with loathing, with the hope of criminal retaliation, with night. So yeah, so that's...
Okie dokie.
On. He's gonna superhero up.
Yeah, this was a great section, man. This is a lot of fun.
It really was. This one is like, it was very strong to hit these three like running and like because they are very action packed, and everything that's been built sort of makes sense. And we're almost to like the fourth. I think we finished the third part and get into the fourth part next. So we're getting to that point where it's all coming done. And then the ending part is when, so they put on one of the things, and it has another one of what's his name, Solovei's poems or whatever. And this one is weird because it does have in the middle that it's like sort of describing, like I was saying, like his thing about maybe he is like sort of a cult leader or whatever and can go and find like extra knowledge or whatever his like religious cultish beliefs are. And this is where he's in the it almost seems like he's in the core, like where there's like all the smoke, there's all the flames, all that stuff. And then he had suspected that his daughter was in danger somewhere in the universe. One of his numerous unique daughters and unique wives born from unknown mothers and submitting to him. But this is this one I read a little bit more carefully than the other ones because I wanted to see if it related, and it sort of feels like it does a bit more than some of the others have up till now, with kind of giving the narrative of Solovyei. And this is where I started thinking, like, what if they're dreaming Solovyei and this is he's stuck in this is his dream, his real life is being in these poems, and like they don't make sense, they're like dreams. Like suddenly he's summoned up his strength to express words, and having set his back on the mirror, he lit 11 candles in a row by bringing them to his mouth. That's like very dreamlike imagery. Like, what if these are his dreams and not like, and it's all reversed? You never know if you're dreaming the butterfly or the butterfly is painting you.
Whoa.
Or whatever that quote is. Oh man. Anyways, I don't know if there's anything else from this particular section to even hit on. So but we get our friend Idfux Sobibian back.
Yeah, your favorite.
My favorite. Absolutely.
Yeah, Volodine like pulls he reminds me a lot of like Philip K. Dick and like Pynchon, where the names are just outrageous.
Yeah.
Like, and you always get first and last names of everybody, and it's always like just a strange.
It's true.
Strange name.
I love that his like don't have any like they don't fit a place.
Yeah,
that's what I've always liked, is that they don't feel like they're some of them seem like Soviet or Slavic, some of them seem almost French, but they're not like.
And then there's like German names like Schmidt and
and Idfuck. And then there's like the one that was like somewhere when she was reading off the names of everyone who's been like abused
Barbara
by
Rock. Like,
Barbara Rock. It was like the most American sounding name ever.
Yeah.
There's like a little hint in here, like on 249, where like we're telling the story of what's his name? Who is it telling Idfuck? It's telling Idfuck's story, I believe. That's another one that just kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, I kept thinking, who is this dude?
Like, I'm not sure what
I trust at this point. It'll come full circle. Whatever. Just hang on to it. We'll learn about it.
Absolutely. But that was great. So maybe Idfuck's going to turn and help Kronauer, because he's like, it's 2,000 meters to hell. Down in the cores are throwing things in. He's like, man, it's a long drop. And Idfuck's like, that ain't hell. Hell is here, dude. Like hell is on the surface. And then my favorite part is when it's telling like his history, where he's like gets abandoned or whatever.
Matthias Boy, it's more it's more that we're within a dream that we can't understand the mechanisms of. We're inside and we don't have any way of getting out.
Yeah.
Like these folks, like, yeah, they have like some sort of awareness. Like even at the end of 297, this will be my favorite line. I'll do this for my favorite line just to wrap it up. We're in a dream, Matthias Boyle concluded. He does to us whatever he wants. So it's like this, like somehow they're a little more self-aware. It seems like, because they're very forthright with like, dude, we're in hell, we're in a dream, we're in a, you know, something's wrong here. So maybe that self-awareness is gonna, you know, help Kronauer and whatever his mission's going to be or whatever. But.
Yeah, and Idfok's one of the ones from the train, and this is where Matthias is telling him this on the train because Matthias is the storyteller guy, and like I love the part that comes right after that too. So like he does whatever he wants. And he says, "Who's he?" Idfok's Sobobian said, "We don't know," said Numak Asheria, "but we do know that he does with us whatever he wants. We're in his hell. We're put here, and we have no way of getting out."
Yep.
So yeah, I'll say that my favorite line is probably the part where like, so back in his story too, he's like freed it and he's sold to nomads immediately and given to one of their old women. The old woman named Malka Mohone didn't travel with her tribe and lived in a tent city erected in the suburb of Burkat, which at the time was an agglomeration of promising developments. This is my part. She spent her time smoking fish and talking with Idfok Sobibian in an idiolect chiefly composed of obscenities and groans that could be equally anti-leftist or counter-revolutionary. This guy grew up with someone just like swearing and grunting the entire time. So yeah, so he's like out. He's not indoctrinated the way that everyone else is. His indoctrination is different. Maybe that's what the point of this is really too, is that he's separate. And then he becomes literate and enters the Komsomol later on and is really good at middle distance races, which is a fantastic phrase to do. Oh man. Yeah, this is a great section. I love this. So let me see if I can find what we are supposed to be reading for next week.
Let's see. Well, it starts at 309.
Yes, 309 through it's chapters 20 through 26, 309 through 363. These chapters get really short here, especially in the Narax section. The part 4, Taiga, which is Narax. These chapters are like a couple pages each. So we're going through a bunch of chapters next week. I believe that we do have a guest lineup for next week, but I need to make sure that she's caught up on the reading. And then we only have 3 episodes left of this season.
All right, racing to the finish.
Yeah, things are going to get crazier for sure. But anyways, well, you have fun skiing.
Will do, man.
And I will see you soon.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Thanks, everyone.